So, we're now at the point with this video of thinking about what the final reassembly of these 4 volumes is going to look like. We've done a couple of major steps so far. The first is that we have rethreaded the original loops here in the ribs with new thread that enables us to reattach the text blocks to the bindings, and there's a video on that. And separately we have reattached the title pages, any loose pages at the back of the volumes, plus where necessary the end papers to the text blocks as well. So these are now 4 complete volumes in terms of their contents, with everything in situ where it should be, and there's a video on page reattachments which I've done as well. So now thinking about how we would knit all these back together, it's probably worth thinking about how was this done in the 1700s when these books were originally bound. Well, it was done actually like this. So there was an extra piece of material that connected these boards to the text block, and it was 800-year-old medieval manuscript music. The whole reason this is happening is that I was lucky enough, blessed enough, to come into possession of these manuscripts when recycling these bindings. And how they would have been used by the bookbinder was big sheets of music were chopped up into these strips, these slots cut out, and then they were inserted around the boards like so. Nope, wrong way around. Inserted, get this right, Nick, there we go, this way around, like so, and then folded over like this. And it added just a little bit of structure and spring here. Obviously the same would have existed on the other side, so this was pasted down like that. So I don't have a great deal of medieval manuscript lying around that I want to use here. So what would be the equivalent material that I could use today that would also have existed 300 years ago? Well, it would probably be a basic cardboard. And a good example of that we have in the 21st century is kitchen roll tube. So my intent had been to demonstrate by cutting these kitchen roll tubes up into shapes very similar to this manuscript and attaching them here to be a key part of the reassembly of the books. But there's a problem, and it's a key lesson learnt throughout this entire process. You've probably, if you've ever travelled on a plane, long haul, wearing leather shoes, you've probably experienced the phenomenon where you're on the plane for about an hour, your feet feel very tight inside the shoes. So you take the shoes off, and then you suddenly find that your feet are now one size bigger than they were compared to the shoes. Now, 2 things have happened when you suffer this. The first is that the shoes are in a very low humidity environment in the plane. Now that wasn't a problem while they were on your feet because they were absorbing sweat from your feet and your socks. But the moment you take your feet out, that leather is now exposed full force to the low humidity, so the leather dries out and shrinks a little bit. The other thing that's happened is that your feet, released from the leather, have now taken on a lot more blood circulation from the rest of your body because you're in a low pressure environment. So your feet swell a little bit, so your feet become too big for your shoes. When you remove leather covers from a book, basically the same thing happens. This leather on the spine shrinks a little bit, and the pages, released of the pressure of the binding, expand a little bit. So you end up with the text block suddenly needing a size bigger binding than it did before. Which means if you take the original binding and try to put it back on the original text block, you're at serious risk of actually splitting the spine. And that kind of rules out the possibility of me demonstrating these with this kitchen roll, because this kitchen roll has a thickness, and I've already added some thickness here with reattaching these pages. And if I chop this up, put it in here, it's going to get too big for the bindings. And I've already had to, unfortunately, use other bindings from the box that are from slightly larger volumes than these original text blocks were. So be ready for changes in the leather that can happen when the leather is removed from the text block that it originally was up against. So we're going to have to compromise a little bit. So what I'm going to be doing is, instead of using this, I'm going to be using a thin piece of cotton material that I'm going to soak in glue, that I'm going to stick down here over these, over the text block, with an extra tongue here. That's going to be really thin. It's going to be highly flexible, and it will work, but it won't be the authentic method that the original bookbinder used, certainly with these medieval manuscripts. But we need to compromise. So there we go. So the remaining videos are going to be around the final reassembly. So we'll take it from there.